Thank you for joining me today on Millennial Seeker's Heart. If you don't know, my name is Sarah, and this is Jen, and I am going to be getting her interview today and just talking to her about how God changed her life. So Jen, how long have you been in the area? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I am married since I was 20 years old. So about 16 years.
Okay.
17 will be this November.
Right.
I have a daughter who's 6 years old.
Cool.
Stay-home mom, and I do homeschool. And then I was born and raised in Vegas.
Oh, cool! Me too. That's awesome. See, we're not all horrible if you were born and raised in Vegas. Was there a religion in your home growing up, or did you grow to church growing up? Was there a God-like atmosphere or any encouragement to the spiritual?
We prayed at Christmas dinner,
Okay.
Easter dinner, stuff like that.
The big important stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
but just prayer. We didn't really go to church. I was christened as a baby.
Okay.
There's photos of that. I did apparently attend a church. I don't remember attending church. I remember sometimes when I would say around like 8, 9 years old, I did go to my grandma's church with her, but I only went to like help her in the kids area. Not go to my kids area. I wanted to help my grandma hand up the Kool-Aid.
Aw, well, it's sweet you had a heart to serve.
Yeah, and then I also remember my mom had these porcelain praying hands. They were like, I knew they were Jesus' hands. So that's about it.
Oh, that's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And was there an event in your life that led you to knowing that God was real to you?
My big one, I don't think I knew at the time that was who was protecting me, but when I was between 3 and 4, I was molested by my grandfather, my mother's father, and I don't remember the event, and I think that's where I know I was protected, because he made sure I did not remember it.
God.
I don't remember any of it. Yes, God.
How did you find out that sexual abuse happened?
I always wondered why I didn't like certain things, but I also was told about it as I grew up. I just knew.
Okay, but it was traumatic and you don't really remember the events?
Yeah, I don't remember the events at all.
Okay.
Which is sad, because I don't remember most of my childhood because of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that had a big effect on your entire life then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
And do you struggle, or have you struggled with anxiety or anything because of that?
Not that I noticed until I started dating and getting married. Sexually, there were certain things I just didn't want to happen to me. Even to this day, I won't let those things happen to me, and that's probably because of that. But at the same time, like, I found a man who is okay with that, which is, he respects that.
Well, and you've been married
For a long
16
time.
years now.
Yeah.
I mean, that the American average is not anywhere near that length of time. So you are a success story that you have had a long, successful marriage even thus far, and a caring, loving relationship. So how did you overcome that? Was it difficult to work through those things?
I used to never talk about it. I was ashamed of it. I thought it was my fault. And then I started going to Central.
Okay.
And they started doing small groups with women. And there were other women talking about certain things like that. And I was like,
About
wow.
sexual abuse?
Yeah, when they were kids. And I was like, wow, like, if they could talk about it, maybe I should try. And so one day I just spilled, and I bawled and I cried, and my grandma was there, and she knew about it. That was the whole reason why she divorced the man. But after just talking about it out loud, and then someone had told me, after I talked about that first evening, someone told me to write a letter to him telling him that you forgive him, and then throw it away. And I did that, and ever since then, it was like weight was lifted off my shoulders. Yeah. It was amazing. I was like, Even though just now it's a disease.
Yeah, and that is a very hard, tragic, horrible thing to have to talk about, to overcome. It's a tragedy.
It is.
And nobody should have to go through that. Nobody should be promoting any kind of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And consent should be something we talk about more, especially in the church.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be talking about two kids. It's not okay if somebody touches you and those sort of things. I think that's one thing that, unfortunately, to this day, regardless of the denomination, is something that a lot of times, and especially depending on what part of the country you're in,
Yes,
or maybe part of the world, it's kind of shunned. And we shouldn't have shame in standing up for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have shame in being a victim and talking about advocating for your rights.
Mm-hmm.
I think of Jesus and the woman at the well. I think of Jesus and, just all throughout the Bible, through his stripes we are healed, and just how he advocated for women and children and how much he loved them.
Yes.
And he was one of the first people to stand up for us not being abused. And I think we need to look to him as our example if he stood up for the people without a voice, and he loved the people that were hard to love, and he stood up for the people who were innocent and weak.
Mm-hmm.
We should be standing up for children and women in those situations to help advocate for them to have a voice. The church should be the first ones to do that, not the last.
Yes.
And I think it is definitely a tactic of the enemy to get people to be quiet about this. There is a wonderful non-for-profit called Operation Underground Railroad, and they help bring children and women who've been sex trafficked into hope and healing and getting them out of that industry, which is unfortunately a very lucrative industry, and it is filled with evil. And whether you're religious or not, I think we could all get on board with that abuse is wrong, and what they're doing is good because they're bringing people back home and getting them help.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what would be your advice for someone who is going through that or has been in that situation and they're hurt and they're trying to work through that, but maybe they're afraid to go to a group, or they don't know how to reach out or talk to somebody? What would be your advice to them?
My advice would be start with just writing a letter to the person and forgiving them.
If you hear kids in the background. Okay, and we're back. And she is going to finish. I apologize for the little blessings being a little loud, but it's okay. They're kids, and we're going to finish the interview. Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
So as you were saying, you were talking about how you would forgive and what your advice would be to someone who's been through a sexual trauma, how to have hope, healing, and forgiveness, and how to walk through those steps of therapeutic letting go.
Okay. So my advice would be, if you can't talk to somebody yet, I would write a letter to the person, forgiving them. Yes, it's the hardest thing that you'll probably do in your life, is writing that letter, but it's not for them, it's for you and your heart. And as soon as you do that, it's going to be a weight lifted off your shoulders. It's an amazing weight lifted off your shoulders. And if you can talk to somebody, please do, because it's an amazing feeling that you could help someone else. You telling your story to someone else can help them realize, I'm not alone. We are together. We are a group of women and children who went through this. And unfortunately, it's something that we do have to live through and live with.
And you are a good example because you've been married 16 years, you're in a happy, healthy relationship, you live a normal life. Like, there is, not that it didn't affect you, but there is a life after, and you've been set free to the point that you don't have to be entrapped forever of not being happy. You can be happy, you can have joy, you can have a life. And you've forgiven to the point that, not that it was right, not that it was okay, but you're not holding on to let it eating up your future. And I think that that's very inspiring. And I so appreciate your boldness and your strength to be willing to share on camera to people that, hey, this happened to me and there's something on the other side of this.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing that part.
Of course.